about love. Every love is about to maintain. You got for nothing less you are. Don't throw stones, you don't know. Stop what you say, it's what you do. Don't throw your stone.
Welcome to Out on That Line, the newest music pod from Alex Koch and Geoff Greenmore. We're here to tell you about some new albums, some old albums, some new songs, some old songs. You're going to find out what we think, and we'd like to find out what you think. So, Alex, why don't you tell the people what you're here for?
Well, I'm kind of here to explore the idea that maybe the Out on That Line podcast was the friends we made along the way, and we can share that love and notion with everyone around us.
That is a beautiful thought.
I am here at the behest of my good buddy out in Texas, Geoff. That's actually something I wanted to start with to pass the ball back to you. What was the genesis of this idea, and what are you kind of hoping to accomplish here?
Well, obviously music has always been a big part of what I like to do in my free time. I like to study it. I like to really find out new music to listen to. And I've also enjoyed podcasts. I think with us and our friend group, music has always been pretty central there as well. So talking about it has always been pretty natural. And I think given, having the time right now with the pandemic and everything, this is as good a time as any to see if this is a conversation that people want to have with us as well. I think when all is said and done, what I'm looking for out of it is just to have, some new ideas come through, so it opens my eyes to new music. I'm not here to just tell folks what they should and shouldn't listen to. I'm here to just give my opinion on kind of what I think about them, how they make me feel, and make sure that, if other people are feeling the same, or maybe they, weren't aware of some of the things that we're talking about, and they go check it out, or they let us know, hey, I know this other thing that's like what you were talking about. Check this out. And maybe I didn't know about it. And I think that's the idea, is just kind of really open up my eyes a little more to the world of music and just kind of make some connections, according to that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Especially the idea of finding new music, because I don't know about you, but I'm pretty much glued to Spotify all day, every day. Yeah. And I tend to roll through the same shit. And I also didn't ask you if you wanted to swear on this podcast, so sorry.
Let it
all right,
rip.
sweet. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. So when I'm listening to Spotify, I tend to kind of stay in my own bubble in the playlist that I've made and the artists that I've listened to. So I really kind of bank on you giving me new stuff to listen to. And then ostensibly, the further we get into this and the more people engage with it, hopefully they'll throw some stuff that we wouldn't normally find through Discover Weekly or, what the algorithm has learned about us. So that's, I think, what I'm the most excited about. That and the fact that I have another podcast. Maybe you've heard of it, the Skimbo Lounge.
I have.
Geoff has been a frequent guest on it. And there's such a pressure to perform on that one, to just be like ridiculous and funny all the time. And sometimes I don't want to speak for Rory, my co-host, but I would kind of get ahead of myself and end up destroying a bit while trying to give life to it. So this, like when you told me about this, I was like, wait a minute, I can just have a conversation.
I was excited, and you were the first one I thought of when I did think of doing a music podcast. You were the first one I thought of, obviously you having had podcast experience already and kind of knowing the ropes with that. And then also just knowing how often we have talked about new songs and talked about music, and it kind of just, the gears just kind of fit together and everything started turning in my head. So I'd sent you the text to ask you, if you wanted to do a music pod, and you immediately said, fuck yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's do it. So, to me it's, I take, obviously we take music seriously, but I just don't want it to seem like we're taking ourselves too seriously. We're doing it because we enjoy music. This is something that we've talked about. We've put quite a bit of work into so far, just to kind of be prepared to hopefully bring some new information, or, if you have certain feelings about the things we're talking about, validate those feelings, or completely piss you off. Whichever way it goes. But it's really just for us to kind of talk about, the new things that are happening, what we think about them, kind of where do they fit in with us. And we're going to be open to new ideas and everything as well. So if you have things, our beautiful listeners out there on our inaugural pod, if you have things that you think, that you want to hear us talk about, you let us know. We'll be putting together and releasing all of the other, the socials that we're going to have and everything like that. So we know how to connect with you. And we'll kind of follow up with those as they get created. But I know I'm looking forward to just connecting with you, finding out what you like, finding out what you don't. And we can kind of learn a lot of new stuff together.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I feel like in terms of the format and the style of this, it's all, this is the first one. There's going to be some shaky knees here. So we're figuring it out along the way. Obviously, we did put a lot of prep into it, and we don't want to undermine that. But there is still an element of putting this together as we go along. So who knows? It could take many forms by the time it reaches its final form.
Yes. And I guess without further ado, we can get right into our first segment. So what we've decided to do, and this I think is one that we're going to keep consistent for every show as far as what we're planning right now. Anyway, this could change, but we're each going to choose an album for each episode for us both to listen to. So I'm going to pick an album. For this one, I chose Kacey Musgraves' Golden Hour. So we both listened to that. Alex chose Margo Price, That's How Rumors Get Started. We each listened to both of these albums. The way that I chose to listen to them, just to be in the interest of fairness and so everybody knows where we're coming from, is I listened to them in the environments that I would be comfortable and normally listen to music. So that's kind of cleaning the house, making dinner, things like that. So I listened to it through one time like that, as well as one time with headphones on, with lyrics up, kind of making sure that I'm really studying things and understanding what the artist is trying to convey to give the best kind of, review or reaction to the song, so to speak. So Alex, how is that going to be similar to what you do, or is that separate from what you're doing?
Completely inadvertently, we did the exact same thing this week, because my process sort of was, I've listened to Golden Hour a bazillion times, but with the new Margo Price, basically I put it on while I was like washing the dishes and doing a bunch of chores and stuff, and use that as an opportunity to weed out songs that faded into the background and songs that stopped me in my tracks. So if, something really jumped out at me, I could be like, okay, pause, wait, what's the name of this one? All right, remember that when we go back through. And then I like exactly what you said. I put on the headphones and I just kind of literally laid on the floor and listened to the album through again and looked up lyrics and looked up some behind the scenes stuff. So, great minds. We didn't even have to discuss it.
Yes. Yeah. And I just feel like that's kind of going to be the fairest way to appreciate these things, because the idea is to give everything a fair shake, no matter what. We've had our biases for types of music we don't like, and everything like that. I feel like everybody has those sort of biases, but for us, I think we've talked about we just want it to be absolutely fair. So if there's certain genres of music I've never been into, we're going to keep trying those out and keep an honest, open eye and open ear to these things. And that's just kind of how I want to go about it. Just to make sure that we're not railroading something that doesn't deserve it, basically.
Well, to that end, watch the airwaves, people, because ostensibly, by the time this is all said and done, I will have made an Elvis Costello fan out of Geoff.
We'll
going
see.
to happen.
We'll see. I
have a plan. Don't worry.
We know how I feel about the British. We'll see. All right. Well, I guess let's start with the Margo Price. That's How Rumors Get Started. Alex, I'll ask you first. Were there any big standout moments for you on the album?
Yeah, and again, we sort of independently went around how we were going to put it together. So I kind of organized it by the standout favorite song for me, and a runner-up, something that was interesting but maybe not my favorite, and then an absolute garbage clunker that I hated.
Yep.
So standing out positively, the best song for me was Twinkle Twinkle, which saying it out loud sounds fucking stupid as shit. Just imagine Noam Chomsky being like, oh, twinkle, twinkle. But I really like that song specifically because for two very specific reasons. One of which is I got super invested in Margo Price when her first album came out, Midwest Farmer's Daughter. Friend of the pod, Dante, was the one that introduced me to Margo Price. And I was really taken aback by how vulnerable and raw and as cliche as those things sound, you know, I think they sound cliche because when it's said about something and it's clearly not true, it makes it sound inauthentic. But with Margo Price, it was the absolute gospel truth. I was listening to her and I'm like, shit, she has lived a really interesting, really hard life. Lost a child. She had twins and one of the boys died very young. Her shitty jobs that she's held, her struggle to make it in Nashville, her alcohol dependency, all these struggles in her life. And she was able to speak about them honestly without being on the nose and making it feel very engaging, all with this like strange Loretta Lynn kind of tribute sound that she's got. Yeah. So it's hard not to be really intrigued by her. And I felt like all of that is a long way of saying Twinkle Twinkle on an album that didn't really feel like a Margo Price album to me, really kind of reminded me of why I fell in love with her in the first place. It had that very like raw, bitter quality to it. Yeah. And then I looked up the story behind it, and it's all about how she and her bandmates, when they were in the, you know, the early offing of trying to make this happen, they would have these bad gigs. They'd play it like a Best Western to 7 people and make no money, and shit would go wrong. And I think it was Marty Stewart who looked at her and was like, you wanted to be a star, right, kid? Twinkle, twinkle. So that became an in-joke for her and her band, is when shit would go belly up on the road, they'd look at each other and be like, hey, twinkle, twinkle, right? So...
Well, that's a nice little tidbit. I didn't realize that.
See, this podcast is already immensely valuable.
Yeah, and you know, that to me also was that was probably top 2 songs on the album for me. I think Heartless Mind was the one for me that stood out. But about Twinkle Twinkle, you know, and I think all of the lines were pretty strong in that one, but she had one particularly, I was having a ball until I threw it too far. You know, that's a really good line, because it says, you know, I was having a good time, but it got away from me, it spun out of control. I mean, you and I have had those nights. I can imagine if we were just on the road as musicians, that could get away from us pretty quick too.
Yeah. I would need to show ID to buy modeling glue at this point. So
yeah. And I got a strong, you know, and I'm sure you noticed it's produced by Sturgill Simpson, the album is.
Oh, yeah.
So I got a strong Sturgill vibe on this one, and Black Keys. It was like they, you know, Sturgill's new album, you know, his newest Sound and Fury.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Is that the name of it? That might be the name of it.
I think so.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But, you know, I got very strong, like I could tell Sturgill's producing this album. You know, when I heard this song and Heartless Mind, you know, it was just, they both were very good to me. Yeah. You know, I think where she falters is when you were talking about how she said things without getting too on the nose. I think there were a lot of things on this album that were really on the nose. You know, and I really read the lyrics. The music was great. Her ear for melody and how to hit those is really, really good. You know, you said Loretta Lynn. I hear a lot of Dolly Parton.
Yep, for sure.
In her voice too. You know, I think it's just, I don't know what register that is in singing. Is it alto or soprano? I'm not sure. You probably have a better.
I think to get like super technical about it, it's contralto, which is somewhere kind of in between.
Because it's very unique. You know, that kind of the notes that they can hit and where they can belt. You know, you don't hear a lot of singers be able to hit in those places. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense, but hopefully people can understand what I'm saying with that. But I felt like when I was listening to it, when I was, you know, cooking, cleaning, you know, bopping around the house, I was like, wow, this is a really good album. I really like this. But then when I sat down to read the lyrics and listen to it, that's when I kind of was like, oh, this maybe isn't as strong as I thought it was. There's still some very strong songs. The ones that I really liked, I still liked. But there's some that I just really didn't care that much for.
Well, and I will say too, as I would say the resident Margo Price fan between the two of us. I mean, Dante and I went to see her, and she like played in this white jacket with fringes on it and embroidered roses, and she walked through the crowd and handed roses out. And you've never seen two grown ass 6'3" men bowl people over to try to get up there just to like worship at the feet of this Nashville goddess. But so I really enjoy her a lot, and I don't know. I guess this is something I'm going to have to get over the more we do the pod, where it feels like I'm in no position to criticize, I guess. But
Yeah.
I felt like it was kind of a step backwards for her in terms of she's always kind of paid lip service to the Nashville sound. You know how people say champagne tastes with a beer budget, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
She's always had a Nashville sound, but an outlaw country spirit to me. The way she writes, the way she expresses herself, it's way more outlaw country than the very polished Nashville sound from days of old where, So I always really appreciated that about her. And this felt way more produced and polished and poppy in a lot of places. And one of those, controversially, Geoff, was Heartless Mind for me. I did not like that song. That was my number one clunker on the album.
Yeah.
So,
see, that one to me, because it was different. It was like almost like an 80s song. It had that kind of real, kind of dance beat to it. The same thing that, kind of Kacey Musgraves goes for on Golden Hour. It's that really, if I didn't know it was Margo Price and you just played me that song and I didn't know anything about who was singing it, I would never peg that as a country song. It was one of those ones where, a country artist doesn't always have to make a country song. So for me, and I feel like that one, because it followed up Stone Me and Hey Child, which were the two big clunkers for me. Just because lyrically, I felt like when we were talking about On the Nose, I mean, they just didn't, it seemed like she was trying to take a bunch of stuff and put it together, and it just didn't fit. Like they didn't have enough water in the dough. It wasn't coming together. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel like there was enough. The melody was great. The music's great. She's got a really good ear for that stuff. But those two songs in particular were ones that I just wasn't totally crazy about. I wouldn't hate somebody for putting them on, or anything like that, but it's not, to me, it just didn't get me going again. Like the other, when I listened to the album the first time all the way through, like I said, I thought it was really good the whole way through. And then when I listened to the lyrics, I was like, well, maybe some of these aren't as good as I was hoping they were when I first heard them,
That's the thing, is when she whiffs, it's almost always lyrically. She's great ear for arrangement, great ear for melody. Your mileage may vary with her voice. There are some songs I can't fucking stand the sound of her voice. And then there are some where I'm like, this just works beautifully. Like Hands of Time off Midwest Farmer's Daughter, the first song off that album. It's what draws you into the whole thing. It makes or breaks the whole thing. It is fucking perfect for that song, for the message of that song, for that album, for setting that tone. So I think it's never really her musicality that's in question so much as it is the lyrics, for me anyway. And I just felt like, for me, Heartless Mind wasn't saying anything new. It just felt like one of the, I don't have the lyrics up in front of me, I probably should, but it was one of those like, hey boy, what you gonna do? Felt this way before, never been so alone. One of those kind of like a seventh grader trying to write breakup poetry kind of shit. Yeah. And I didn't love the like screen door in the wind, like rusty hinge synth sound that was like really driving from the beginning. Yeah. So it was one of those things where I applaud trying to do like a cosmic country bit, like you said. It just like didn't land for me. Hard to say why.
And I mean that's perfectly fair. And I think the way that we kind of structured this without, where we, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we were also not really speaking to each other about the albums that we chose. We let each other know which ones they're going to be, and then specifically didn't mention if we were liking them or what particular things we didn't like or anything like that, just to make sure that we're kind of coming into this pure. So when Alex is saying these things about the album, this is the first time he's talking about them to me. So this is why, and this is a good example of why we're doing this in the first place. Just happened to be the first episode that we've done that it kind of showed exactly why we're doing it that way, is because we can have totally different feelings about these songs. And we come in, something worked for him that didn't work for me, but there's another point on the album where something worked for me and didn't work for him. And I think that's kind of the exact reason why we're doing it this way. And it's just beautiful, man.
Yeah, man.
Just beautiful.
It's fucking synergy and friendship.
But I think the reason I like that Heartless Mind in the synth sound and everything like that, is just because I didn't really expect great lyrics from that song. Maybe that's why it kind of landed a little better for me. With Stone Me and Hey Child, those are songs where the background arrangement is not very complicated. There's not a driving beat to it. It's very much acoustic. It does get rocking a little bit in those songs, but it's not, the music and the technical wizardry of the guitar player and things like that are not the forefront of those songs.
Yeah.
So the lyrics really are the thing that you're meant to listen to in those, as far as, kind of I'm concerned, and they just didn't hold up. So those songs really fell flat for me. So when I hear a song that sounds totally different from those two and has, I probably didn't care much about the lyrics again when I was listening to it, because I was like, well, it doesn't sound like those other ones. It sounds like something I'm kind of bopping along to here. So it to me, I was just like, well, this is definitely, maybe it sounded better because it followed those other ones.
Yeah.
Well,
and also another thing to bring up is, tastes change almost daily. I could end up loving this fucking song by the end of the week. I could end up loving it in a year. I could hate it forever. I don't even actively hate it. Hang up your fucking boots, bitch. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
It's just, I remember listening through, I was like, oh yeah, okay. This is definitely a standout baddie for me. But it could totally change. Yeah. I've hated some songs in the past that have really grown on me, and I've loved some songs. I gotta kind of out a buddy of ours here. I know we don't want to make it too inside baseball and talk about people in our lives and kind of broaden the appeal.
No, I want to hear it. Let me hear it.
But I have our buddy Tanner. We're both big Warren Zevon guys, but he kind of played the live version of Genie Needs a Shooter to death for me, to the point where it came on the other night, and I had that moment where I had to bite my cheek and go, do you say something or do you let this ride? Because this is a song we've really vibed to a lot. And I went out of my way to be like, I love this fucking song so much, and this version of it so much. So he was trying to meet my needs. He was trying to feed Baby Bird a little Genie Needs a Shooter live. And I love him for that. But it also got to the point where we heard it so many times out at the camp on the 4th of July that I was like, I kind of got to take a little break from Warren for a little while. So,
it happens. I do that to myself with, I've done that to myself with Deer Tick. I've done that to myself with Strand of Oaks. I've done that to myself with Coheed, with Springsteen even. It's just, you listen to enough of something and you want to hear something else. That's the beauty of having so many options for stuff, is because, you're going to come back to that. There's no shame in getting sick of something or not thinking something's as good as something else you like. This is all subjective stuff, And I think, as far as other songs on this album, on this Margo Price album, there were not a lot of other standouts for me. It was a pleasant album to listen to. Don't get me wrong. I definitely want to hear more. I'll definitely get more into Margo Price and get deeper into her first album there. Cause I did, I've heard a few songs from her and everything. So I knew I liked her. And I certainly overall did like this album, and it's just it didn't finish as strong as other ones have for me. I don't know if it'll be a huge repeat album for me like some other ones have been recently. But I certainly didn't regret hearing it whatsoever.
Yeah, and I don't regret suggesting it either. It's just one of those things where I have Midwest Farmer's Daughter on vinyl. I have All American Made, the second one, on vinyl. I love those albums. They get a lot of replay. I'm probably not going to buy this one, at least not right away. I will probably end up going back to it a couple more times this week.
Yeah.
And then kind of see where things go. And that could be a fun thing, too, to do on future episodes. Be like, did you listen more? Did you get anything new out of it? Did you change your mind on anything?
Yeah. A little where are they now?
Yeah, you know. Little opportunity to retract my vitriol maybe sometime.
Yeah. And it's certainly, you know, and I don't think we're ever going to pick an album that we both actively hate on here. You know, I think if we happen to pick an album that neither of us have ever listened to, and then we both listen to it and realize we absolutely hate it, you know, we obviously reserve the right to change that up, because the point is not to tear things down.
Right.
You know, the point is to just kind of let people know what we're thinking about these things, and not try to deter people from listening to something just because we don't like it, or anything like that. So, I just don't want to I just want people to think that we're just going to, if we say bad things about Margo Price's album, that, you know, that it means don't go listen to it.
No, fuck no.
That's certainly not the case. No. And even the songs that I said weren't great for me, that's in comparison to the others on the album. You know, is kind of where I come from with that. You know, and so if there's really strong songs and there's some that don't live up to that, you know, I feel like it's only fair to mention that, you know, and not pretend that it's, you know, not look at everything with rose-colored glasses, you know.
Yeah. Well, and it's I mean, that to me too is like the worst kind of film criticism is people that, you know, have an undergraduate degree in filmmaking and are now YouTubers who sit there and are like, the latest Marvel movie is simply another attempt of trying to get cash out of the wallets of the poor capitalist pig, you know, that kind of thing. and
well, they can always take my money because those movies are always goddamn entertaining. So.
Yeah, they're fun as shit. And I'm just as guilty of ranting about the Hollywood behemoth, but I've just like kind of had my fill of the YouTube film criticism crowd because they know that there's money in hating something. Whereas if people come to expect that you're going to always be nuanced or net positive about something, it's not as entertaining as shitting all over the all-female Ghostbusters, which is a big move they all like to pull.
Yeah, there was that, and then, you know, it's really just, there's always those folks you hear about on Rotten Tomatoes that there's a film that has a perfect score, and then there's that one asshole that gives it a 1 because he's like, well, things don't deserve perfect scores. It's like, you don't deserve to breathe, buddy. Like, what the fuck is that? You know, it just doesn't make any sense to me when people want to just completely tear something down just without really giving it a shot. You know, if you hate something after giving it a fair honest shot, good on you. You know, I'm fine with that. You know, if you can give me a good reason why you don't like it, then I'm fine with it. But if you're just going to say, this movie sucks, like with Ghostbusters, the remake, this movie sucks because they redid it with women. Like, that's stupid.
A dumb yeah, exactly.
That's dumb. I mean, you can say what you want about what they should have done with that movie other than just try to make a reboot. They should have done a sequel or something. You know, it's just the things they should have done, they didn't, you know, with that. But it's like, that doesn't mean you have to go on there and just say it sucks for the reasons that people were saying that it sucks, right. You know, and saying, well, this goes, making it some big problem in the industry, you know, because they were doing that. It's like, you just need to realize that not everything is that serious.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it just doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and I don't want to like hijack the conversation too much with movies, but there's this one chode on YouTube named Doomcock, and all he does is talk about, it's the most dog whistly shit you've ever heard. We have to save pop culture. Our culture is being taken from us. And then in the next breath, he's talking about how only white men can be made fun of on TV shows now. And that's offensive to my culture. And I'm like, I see what you're doing, guy. You're making it sound like we all got to fight to save Star Wars, but we know what your priorities actually are. So, like, unfortunately, so much criticism of anything kind of falls into that agenda-driven category. And I mean, I feel safe speaking for you, saying that's not what we're here to do. If we hate something, we hate something. We'll always tell you why. If we love it, we're not shills. It's gut reactions.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, certainly at this point, no one's paying us to do this podcast. So,
Wait, what?
You can count on our views being unbiased.
So authentic.
Don't worry. I opened you up a tab at Gusto's. That's your payment for the, put a couple of vodka sodas on there.
Perfect.
Maybe every other weekend.
I think they're putting them in the little Capri Sun pouches now and sending them out for delivery. So,
oh boy,
yeah, I look forward to that.
Really, yeah. Well, we're doing our fantasy football season with the owner, so we'll maybe we can get him to give us some to-go drinks. Might be tough for me to get him down here in Texas.
You're not going to like the condition they arrive in.
Yeah.
This guy bought a jellyfish on the black market and it arrived very dead.
They will technically be drinkable, but you're not going to want to do it.
You're going to be sucking it out of a cardboard box.
All right, so I guess we'll try to wrap up with Margo Price. Final thoughts on this album for you? Is this one that you're going to go back to? Is this one that you're going to give, a positive review, negative review? What are you saying at the end of the thing?
Yeah, and that's one thing we also didn't discuss is do we want to do like I give it 8 out of 10 or I give it 3 stars out of 5 or whatever, and maybe that's not something we need to figure out right away. I think maybe it's more helpful to say something like stream it or skip it. Like
yeah, sure. Or we could just do completely arbitrary rating systems every time.
Yeah,
like this one gets 7 bananas out of 6.
Yeah, they could be like themed ratings and stuff like that too. Yeah. I would say that Margo Price's latest is worth the price of admission.
Oh, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah, check it out. I'm going to go back to it a couple times this week, so I would recommend everybody else give it a shot.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm gonna go ahead and say if you're into the kind of Americana country, kind of rock side of things, there's a really good movement of the ladies of Nashville. Margo Price, Kacey Musgraves that we're going to get into in a minute. I think this album is absolutely worth going back to. There was a couple songs that I think could be stronger, but overall, I think she really nailed it on this one. And obviously being a fan of the producer, Sturgill Simpson, you can hear, if you listen to him, you can hear a lot of his influence on this and a lot of these songs. Just kind of the way that she has a little bit of wordplay, it's the same kind of thing he would do, the way it fits around the music. So you can definitely see where, she's I think she's probably grown from other albums in some ways, but I think this one's worth listening to. And I'm certainly going to go back to it. I'm going to go back into other ones as well to help give me a little more context about kind of where she came from to get to this spot here.
Yeah, I think you'll really like Midwest Farmer's Daughter. So to all you out there too, definitely jump in on that one as well. That's her first one.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I guess we get into next Kacey Musgraves' Golden Hour. I think we've both been into this album for a while since it came out. I think both of us were on the Kacey Musgraves bandwagon since well before this album. I've known about her since I think the first song I really learned or knew was that Same Trailer, Different Park. Mm-hmm. Or Merry-Go-Round, I think was the name of the song. I think Same Trailer, Different Park was the album.
Yes, correct.
So I heard that, and it just kind of the way she turned a phrase kind of caught my, it's like and Daddy's stuck on Mary 2 doors down. Yeah,
I was just thinking that same thing.
It's just the way that she kind of does that wordplay. It's very much that kind of like deep South country. Where guys like Waylon Jennings or Willie Nelson, she definitely has that kind of outlaw country vibe that she's had in the past. Now this album, Golden Hour, that is totally gone. Yeah. She has gone full on country music, like starlet with this album. And I love this album. I mean, I'm just going to be right out front and say it. I think this album absolutely rocks. I think everybody needs to go listen to this one. We could probably go on and on and on. So tell me your initial thoughts about Golden Hour.
Golden Hour. So as to set the table too, one thing I have to confess to is being a lifelong country snob, like a major antagonist of country music. My mom and my sister used to listen to Froggy, which was the local country station.
Terrible.
Dog shit, top 100. My brother's truck ran away with my dog. Fucking
tailgates and tan lines country. It's disgusting.
Awful.
I will say, I know I mentioned not hating something without giving it a chance. Well, maybe I've given that music a chance. I hate that kind of country.
Yeah.
It's no good. It's
all just like homogenized, prepackaged horseshit. Insert, reference du jour here. So I that's always been an anathema to me. I've hated country growing up, and then kind of through college and to present day, you see a little value in someone like Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson, and one thing leads to another, and you realize you can't really paint with such a broad brush with the entire genre. But I was perfectly willing to write Kacey Musgraves off at first because my mom heard the song Follow Your Arrow and kept talking about it. She's like, oh, I love that song. It reminds me so much of your sister because, like, your sister's trying to figure out, like, where to go with life right now. And if I can editorialize, she missed her calling as a cage fighter.
Well, I did call her Rocky for a while.
Hey, yo.
Yeah.
But so my mom was like, oh yeah, Follow Your Arrow really like reminds me of your sister. I really want her to listen to it. My sister couldn't give two shits about music, so she didn't care. I listened to it and I was like, hey, you know what? It's not the worst thing I've ever heard. And
well, let's be fair. If it was John Mayer, your sister would give a big time shit.
Big time shit.
The biggest shit. She would give a Bono size shit.
Oh yeah. She would have mailed him a doll made out of her hair. Like, so
only if he'd mail one back.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, where was I going with this? So that was kind of the first song that made me take notice of her, and it didn't like blow my hair back, but I was like, oh, she's talking about like, kiss lots of boys or girls if that's what you're into, smoke pot, all that kind of stuff. Not something you hear all the time, particularly in mainstream country.
No.
So I gave her more of a shot based on that. And then, like you said, that merry-go-round song, mother's hooked on Mary Kay, brother's hooked on Mary Jane, father's hooked on Mary down the street. I mean, fucking great.
It is. It's just the way she turns a phrase can be really incredible sometimes. She's just got a really great kind of soft voice. She can sing, plenty loud and belt and do all the vocal gymnastics that a lot of people can do, but the way that she's very subdued and it's almost like she's talking, it's very much that kind of like 60s and 70s singer-songwriter vibe like that the folk scene had, but it's got this kind of just rhinestone country shine on it. I don't know how else to really describe that, but it's just different. You know what I mean? It just, when I heard her songs versus what the other country music starlets at the time were singing, it's like, well, this is different. She's talking about smoking weed and I'm hearing this on the radio.
Yeah.
It's like, what? On Froggy 100.9? What?
And for those of you playing along at home, this is my first Elvis Costello reference beyond saying I would get Geoff addicted to him. But sort of the same thing that I appreciate about his lyricism, where it's just that clever turn of the phrase without going out of the way to club you over the head with it. She just is so confident in her songwriting abilities that she never has to like really stretch for it, and it's super refreshing. So I really appreciate that about her, and I appreciate the whole cosmic country movement. This very like psychedelic sound experimentation. She's definitely, I would say, on the vanguard of that. But Sturgill definitely too, especially his newest one. Some John Prine too is very much in that mold. Yep. So it's
she's done a lot of songs with John Prine.
Yeah.
I mean, she used to tour with him.
Just pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So then Golden Hour, I think my first exposure to that was actually you were home one Christmas and the guys, we were all hanging out and we were all doing like randomly music video roulette, being like, oh, this is the latest thing I saw, put this up. And you picked the video for High Horse, which wasn't even a single off this album, which is crazy. Because it was
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. I would have thought that would have been the single, but it was Butterflies and I want to say Velvet Elvis. Or no, Space Cowboy.
Space Cowboy. I think Golden Hour got a little play as well.
Did it?
When it started getting all the Grammy hype and everything, I think everything started getting a little play on the radio. Yeah.
I buy that.
Yeah. because I mean, this album took the world by storm.
Yeah.
I mean, this was. I mean, I think as far as for female country stars, and certainly somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I mean, aside from Taylor Swift's country albums, I don't remember a female country artist having, even a male country artist. I don't remember a country album being this big in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of talking out of my ass here, but I bet you would have to go back to like Garth Brooks to really kind of get that level of mainstream appeal. It's not just the country fans. Like everybody can kind of fuck with Kacey Musgraves. So
yeah, and most people that I've talked to have listened to this album. You know, nobody that I talked to, I'm like, oh yeah, I listened to this Kacey Musgraves album. They're like, who's Kacey Musgraves?
Right.
Like, I feel like that's not a thing anymore. She has hit that level of stardom, which, like, the guys that she's singing about on Golden Hour, like both of these dudes, because I think there's pretty clearly, like, she's talking about her old relationship in some of these, and then her new one as well. You know, I think like Space Cowboy is about the old one. You know, because there was a guy in a band that she came up with when she was doing like the Same Trailer, Different Park, and Pageant Material albums. Those were, you know, she had a band that had come up with her, and she was dating the guitar player for a few years.
yeah, I think his name was like Mira Ariga or something like that. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he does his own thing for music too as well. You know, I think he's a pretty talented dude in general. But I mean, you're dating Kacey Musgraves, dude. Like, how do you how do you mess that up?
Right.
You know, yeah. And then this other guy, Rustin Kelly, which I think they're divorced.
They
now
are
again.
separated. Yeah, they have filed. Yeah.
Yeah, and that just, to me, I'm like, what do you? And it's clearly because they can't handle how big of a star she is.
Yeah.
But it's like, what were you with her for in the first place? If you didn't, like, if it wasn't for this, you know what I mean? If that wasn't part of what you liked about her.
Go date a Denny's
You know,
waitress if that bothers you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, go down to a karaoke bar, find somebody with a good voice, because that's already clearly something that's all you cared about.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you think about the talent in these songs, and you obviously there's like producers and everything, but that you can always say like, oh, she wouldn't have done this without them, blah blah blah. But she's written a lot of songs for other people, and she sold a lot of records on her own. And that doesn't, so that to me with this album tells me that she really had a lot to do with everything on this, all the music, everything. That it really, you know, because there's no, I don't know of anybody right now that's really making songs in the area that she is that's as successful as she is. You know, there's obviously, you have your straight pop music, you know, your Beyoncés and things like that that are making, you know, that are going to sell out stadiums no matter what. But as far as just female country artists, I can't think of anybody that's even close to her.
No, and I mean, you have like, and I hate to even call them pretenders to the throne because they have merits in their own right, but Maren Morris or Haley Witters, who is really up and coming from the Nashville scene. Highly recommend checking out Haley Witters' stuff. But I mean, like I said, nothing compares to the mainstream crossover appeal of Kacey Musgraves. I mean, she's just like checks every box. It's
Yep.
Like you said, the litmus test is kind of playing it for someone who might not necessarily go for that kind of thing. And I've never heard anyone say, this is fucking trash, turn this off.
Yeah.
Even people that would.
It's just you can't say they're bad songs.
Yeah.
There's no way you can cut them to say they're bad songs. So I guess I think we've extolled the virtues of Kacey Musgraves up here.
Listen, I'm single and I am shooting my shot. Okay, like.
Okay, yeah, get at him, Casey. Birds are dinosaurs on Twitter.
That's right.
Don't read the past tweets. Just pay attention to what he says after he knows that you're following.
Yeah, please don't revisit my one-man war against Mike Huckabee back in 2016. So
it was a well-waged war.
We tried. We did the best.
And he's irrelevant, so you must have won.
I'm not taking credit for it, but if you want to assign it, I will gladly wear that.
Credit should go where it's due.
That's all I'm saying.
That's my motto. Credit should go where it's due.
I like that.
That's all I'll say. So with this one, I mean, we start right out on this album with Slow Burn. And it says, born in a hurry, always late, haven't been early since '88. Talking about obviously being born early, like before her time, like before her due date, and just immediately, how clever is that line? It's so simple. It's that just straight to the point, like way that country music can just make a metaphor and tell you, like, this is your scene. This is what you're looking at here, because she's born in a hurry, like always late, hasn't been early since '88. She's like, I'm always late to everything. Like, I haven't been like, and that's the thing that she says. And I can just hear a woman from the South saying that. Well, honey, I haven't been early since '88.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. It just, she so can deliver those things so quickly and simply that it's just right out the first line in the album is just immediately another one of those.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. It's like, I love that song. Like you said, it's a great introduction to what you're going to see moving forward, but it's just, it's hard to articulate, honestly, exactly what I'm going for here. Also, giant flash of lightning behind me scared the shit out of me. So, yeah, I have completely lost track of what point I was trying to make, so I'll just end it with, I agree with you. Slow burn, excellent.
Beautiful.
Good for me.
And that, so that one, that one kind of strikes you as a country song. It's definitely, I would think, more of a folk song, but it's very stripped down. You can really hear her voice on that one. And it's very just a pure voice. It's not big and flashy. Like I said, she can do plenty of vocal gymnastics if she wants to, but she really is good at keeping it simple.
Yeah.
And just making sure you're hearing what she's saying. And I really can appreciate that because it's all really relatable as well.
And that kind of, like, not to be corny, but it is kind of a metaphor for the album experience. It is a slow burn. It's not like, hey, we're just going to get this little ballad out of the way, and then it's just banger, 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 banger. Like Margo Price when she goes and takes the fucking door off the hinges. Tennessee song off of, I think that's off Midwest Farmer's Daughter. Just this big swinging for the fences, gutsy fucking.
It's one where she's like, I want to go back to Tennessee.
Let's go back to Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm, and I know exactly what you mean. It's like she's got that real kind of country rock romp, that like Blackberry Smoke.
Yeah.
Kind of just real, where you're there to boogie.
Yeah.
Is why you're listening to that music, and that's kind of what I hear when I hear those things. And yeah, Kacey Musgraves doesn't really have that, but at no point did I wish for it.
Yeah. She's just so confident, so content to like slowly unfold this over the course of the album. Just like drip, 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 drip. And it's not even like boring and plotting. It's the songs are exciting. They're engaging. They're upbeat. But they just like play to that honey sweet quality of her voice. Like, oh God, just close your eyes and listen to her. It's so great.
Yep. Yeah. I like to, I did with this one actually. We got it on vinyl, because Marla, my fiance, is a big Kacey Musgraves fan. And so that was one that we obviously got on vinyl. We got pageant material on vinyl. I think we just have to get the first album, and we'll have them all. But she loves it, so we listen to that album a lot. I mean, that's one of the ones that we'll put on the record player just when we're making dinner, Sunday mornings when we're cleaning, whatever it might be. Like, that's an album that gets a lot of play here. And it's because you can just listen to the whole thing all the way through. Like, I don't ever feel like, I just need to go, I want to hear this one song. It's like, I just want to put on Golden Hour, the whole album. I just want to listen to the whole thing all the way through, because to me, it's one experience. And it's really well put together. Going from Slow Burn into Lonely Weekend, then you get that kind of upbeat, kind of dancey kind of thing. And it's like, how relatable is that? Where it's like, yes, everybody else is out tonight, but I'm staying in. I'm just staying. It's a lonely weekend, but I'm good with it. It's like, we've all had that. Like, I love having my alone time. If I can just spend a few hours just on my own doing nothing, I'm not going to be thinking about anything. I'm not going to be doing anything, just having myself a good time on my own. And it's just hearing that in a song is cool, because obviously that's relatable for me. And with it being, that kind of like dance song, is nice. It's got a nice little groove.
Yeah,
to
it's
it.
a little bop.
Yeah. And I think to me, there's really no weak spots on the album. I think my favorite song on it is Rainbow. Just because how, when you think about that song, it's like just, again, that wordplay. It's like everything just kind of fits together. With each verse, the chorus, like the way that she puts things together, it all just kind of always makes sense. And it always kind of elicits the maximum emotion. Mm-hmm. And the exact emotion I feel like you're supposed to feel with these things. Because I always get a little choked up when I listen to Rainbow, because I'm like, oh, there's, you think of the people that you would sing that song to, or that you would play that song for. And it can be a very, I don't know, she's got a way of really kind of getting in touch with the real kind of deep human emotion, and kind of that visceral tinge you get of emotion, instead of, like something's making me angry. It's like she kind of, that's, you feel like punching a hole in a wall, or something makes you really happy and you're laughing and laughing, but she's got this way of describing those feelings that you don't really have a way to describe.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Yeah. And it's just, that one to me is kind of the best representation of her as a songwriter, is because it's just the message is very clear, but she's got a very kind of fantastical way of presenting it. It's like, you've always had a rainbow hanging over your head. It's that, again, that very country kind of, it's like, I can imagine a 55-year-old like Peggy Hill on King of the Hill. Well, honey, you've always had a rainbow hanging over your head. Like that kind of thing. Peggy. It's just like it's just a very reassuring kind of song. It's like very reassuring music to listen to in general. I don't know if that even makes sense.
No, it totally does. And I will follow that up with twofold. The one song that on this album that really chokes me up, that I actually like have a hard time in a positive way getting through, is Mother. Because I just like feel those pangs so bad when I hear it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's like a minute long. We just got to get through it, and it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's just like so visceral that I struggle with a little bit. But in terms of a really positive reaction, on like almost a purely esoteric level, is "Oh What a World." That one for me will stop me in my tracks. I am a very in my head, anxious, like mile a minute, thoughts racing kind of person. But if you put that song on, I stop thinking. I just inhabit the song. And I think what I love about it is this idea of the lyrics, "Oh, what a world, I don't want to leave. All kinds of magic around us. It's hard to believe. Thank God it's not too good to be true. Oh, what a world." So she's saying all of these wonderful things, like, look at all this magic in the world. There's all these great things. And then there is you. And I so desperately want to feel that way about someone, and to have someone feel that way about me. So it's this like very positive sense of longing that I get when I listen to that song, where it's optimism. It's not sad, like, I don't have that. It's like, fuck, I hope to be worthy of that. And it's crazy that a fucking, let's call it a pop song, like it's nuts to me that a song can just make you feel like that. In what, 2.5 minutes?
I think that's just what music can do, though, is the thing, and I think that's a big reason why we're doing this podcast, is because of the way it's always made us feel. If it didn't make us feel anything, we'd probably make a podcast about computers, because we'd feel some kind of way about that. It's just, but music is something, you with your musical theater background, obviously been in, a few bands. I mean, you were in Laser Dad, no big deal or anything, but probably one of the most popular cover bands that Burlington's ever seen, and you guys were great. And then, obviously we played a lot of music together, of original stuff. So it's like, you have, you certainly are, you have a love for music, and it comes through with how you talk about it, and I think that's the whole reason why we're doing this, is that it gives us a chance to talk to other people like that too. Because I feel like music is something that you may not like the same kind of music that I do, but I'm guessing we both like music, whoever you are out there in listener land, it's something that can bring a lot of people together. And I think it's, as long as you're letting it, you know what I mean? It's as long as you're understanding like what Kacey Musgraves is trying to tell us with her songs. If you're understanding, because that's what she wanted was, oh, what a world. Like, she wrote that because that's how she was feeling. but obviously that's what she's great at. And she's like, well, I know I'm feeling this. I'm just like a lot of other people. Like, let me put this into words and describe it for other people that might not be able to describe it for themselves. And it's almost like she's doing us a service.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would agree with that. It's just so strange to me. Like, definitely I've been arrested by the musicianship of a Steely Dan. I mean, they were studio perfectionists. So you really appreciate, I mean, Donald Fagen's voice is what it is. And the things that they write about are very dark and sarcastic. So that kind of holds you at arm's length. I've never really heard a Steely Dan song that made me be like, yeah, this makes me want to fall in love. I listen to them and I'm like, I should buy a gun. So like,
I get the same thing.
How dare you? I know for a fact your fiance is part of the Dan band.
Yeah, she is.
Good woman. You need that influence in your life. You need some structure.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like there are so many songs out there that have moved me on an equal level or an even greater level than something like Oh, What a World. But Kacey Musgraves is not, I mean, she's kind of out of my realm, so to speak. I'm not the biggest country guy. I'm certainly not a big pop guy. And here she is with that complete crossover appeal. And I hear a song like that and it's like prodigies in unexpected places. She just has the magic.
And I think we can certainly do more of a in-depth kind of discussion about what pop music really is. Because I think this one is pop music, but because it's so good that it got popular.
Yes.
And not necessarily because it's by a popular artist that no matter what you do, the song's going to be popular. Because, I mean, look at Chris Brown. Like, that guy's a piece of shit. And really is not that, like, very talented dancer, but so are a lot of people. And he's a garbage man, but his songs sell millions at a time because he's a recognized name. They know they're getting a dance song. They know they're getting something they can dance to. The lyrics are going to be garbage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's just, I think this one is pop music, popular music because of its merits. I don't think it's got anything to do with the fact that it's just because it's Kacey Musgraves' new album.
Yeah. It wasn't like prepackaged and forced down anyone's throat, which is what's so cool about it, is it got to speak for itself.
Yeah. And I think, and I really, kind of feel validated in how much I have always enjoyed listening to her music when I see her, doing those songs with John Prine and Willie Nelson, and these folks that have kind of held the torch for like that Americana style of songwriting, and not, really sticking to it and not really going towards the tailgates and tan lines kind of country like a lot of folks did. It's easy to sell the records. When you talk about your Chevy truck and your red Solo cups, it's easy to sell those records. It's not so easy to sell records with the kind of subject matter that Golden Hour has, because it's very real life. She's talking about heartbreak. She's talking, it's not, oh, my wife left me, I'm gonna drink some beers and hope pet my dog, but my dog died. Who am I petting? That kind of, that kind of like weird country music like that. It just doesn't have any feeling to me. Yeah. Like folks that just listen to strictly that, I'm like, I feel like it just bounces like a little BB inside of an empty head when they listen to songs like that. It's just like I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me. Albums like Golden Hour, songwriters like Kacey Musgraves and John Prine and Willie Nelson, like those people do something for me. I feel like they provide a service to people, in maybe not feeling so alone, maybe not feeling like their feelings about things are not valid, because she's already at this point that she came out with this album was pretty well on her way. She sold plenty of songs to like Miranda Lambert, really big. I'm sure there's Kacey Musgraves songs that people are familiar with that they didn't even know are Kacey Musgraves songs. I wish I had thought of preparing a list of them, but I know like Not Your Mama's Heartache by Miranda Lambert was a Kacey Musgraves song. And I remember hearing that song on the radio. I'd get pumped when I heard that because it's just a rock song. And Kacey Musgraves wrote that, and she's like, I don't really like singing this one, so she gave it to Miranda Lambert, and it became like one of Miranda Lambert's most popular songs. I mean, that's how good of a songwriter Kacey Musgraves is, that she just like, I don't feel like doing that one. And just like top 10 country hit.
Yeah,
no problem.
her cast-offs are platinum. Yeah,
yeah, like no problem. She's and I think, I don't know, I just feel like it's kind of rare these days to have a star as big as she is that is responsible for writing all of her own stuff.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, even when there's like co-writing credits and stuff like that, you can tell she's the driving force. You would know. You would know if she wasn't the one who came up with the idea or the lyrics or the general theme. It would stand out because there's just such a unity to this album.
Yeah.
If there's one song on it, to transition a little bit, that if the game is cut one song off the album, that for me would probably be Wonder Woman. I think that's one of the more mainstream, not a ton going on songs on there, but that's just me.
That was the most like kind of, to me, that was like the Dolly Parton 9 to 5 kind of vibe to that one.
Apt comparison.
Yeah, and it was very much, I felt like it was kind of her nod to the like kind of rhinestone country, because it's like, I can't lasso the love out of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, she's very sophisticated in how she writes the lyrics, but the turns of phrase that she has are very simple. They're very much like, you go to the country store and get a sweet tea and you hear some Kacey Musgraves lyrics. It's like they very much have that kind of feeling to me, but it's still like sophisticated the way to put those together. You still have to make those sound good. You can't just let those just say the phrase and just let it be simple. You have to put it in a context, and she does that.
Yes.
It's you have to. I don't know. I feel like this is why she is a multi-platinum recording artist, and I'm recording a podcast about it.
Right.
Is because we're just going to be riding the creative coattails of these folks that have written these lyrics and everything.
And I'm here to be regressive and talk about how attractive some of them are. So,
I have to be careful with how I talk about Kacey Musgraves in front of the old fiance, because I've been on the Kacey Musgraves bandwagon for a long time. She's a very good looking woman.
Yes. All I will say is she's talking about, I can't lasso the truth out of you. Baby, I sure wish you'd try.
The truth out of you. Yeah, the truth out of you. That's right. I got that line wrong. You're right. But, and even like that being the weakest song, like what is that even saying?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's still like a great pop song, and I think we haven't even really touched on High Horse, which should have been the single from this one, right? I mean, in that video, just very much that kind of like, so the video had that Dolly Parton 9 to 5 vibe again, it was that office setting, and then it was her as like kind of different characters, but it was always like, it's got a very just kind of snarling through the whole thing, where it's like she very much sings, it sounds very sweet, like you said, that kind of very honey like sound to her voice. But this song is definitely like somebody pissed her off.
Oh yeah.
And
that's the difference, I think, again, between her and Margo, is Margo Price would be like, you son of a bitch. And Kacey Musgraves is just going to be that, like, quiet, she'll just cut you down with this well-placed, like, this barb you never would have thought of. She's not going to go, fuck you, asshole. She'll be like, oh, really? You're gonna act like that? Okay, well, let's just remember which one of us is the multi-platinum recording artist and very attractive, and which one of us works at the fucking Panera Bread Company. Like, that's a shitty comparison, but it's the only thing I can think of between the two of them, where like she doesn't have to raise her voice and get angry and get mean vocally to just make this song that's like devastatingly cutting. Like if you played this for someone and were like, that reminds me of you because you're a fucking buzzkill, and they listen to the song, that probably would end your friendship. Yeah.
It is. It's a diss track. Never really thought of it that way. It's a diss track.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, it's country music's version of a diss track.
It's Kacey Musgraves' Ether.
Yeah, Yeah, where Kacey Musgraves is going to, like, Margo Price will throw a vase at your head.
Yes.
You know, Kacey Musgraves is going to come at you with a verbal scalpel.
Yes.
Just cut you up. Little ribbons.
I like that. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we could go again on and on and on about Kacey Musgraves, because I think we both know what we're going to say on this one. Absolutely listen to this album if you haven't. It is incredible. It's every bit as good as we're saying. I mean, it's probably one of the better pop albums in recent memory for me. I mean, there hasn't been a ton that I've gone back to again and again and again. I've probably listened to this album 70 times at this point.
Yeah, nope, I'll co-sign that. If you're not listening to this, what the hell are you doing? Get out of here.
Yeah.
Go listen to this.
Yeah. So Margo Price gets stamp of approval. Definitely check out That's How Rumors Get Started. Kacey Musgraves, Gold Star, Golden Hour, incredible album. Absolutely go listen to it. Let us know what you think about either one of them, and we'll let you know what our socials are going to be when we come up with those. Yes. But we wanted to talk about, I think we probably have time for probably one more segment here. We're already pretty deep into it. But if people haven't realized, there has been a sequel to the song Jessie's Girl by Rick Springfield, by my favorite band of all time, Coheed and Cambria. Now, the way this came about, I guess, is Claudio Sanchez, lead singer of Coheed and Cambria. If you're not familiar with them, think Rush, that kind of prog rock type of thing. And they tell one big story through all their albums versus, one story per album. It's just one overarching storyline that they tell. So they're very sci-fi heavy, prog rock, kind of very, not complicated music to listen to, but there's complicated things going on in their music. So I guess Claudio reached out to Rick Springfield and said, hey, what would you think about doing a sequel to Jessie's Girl? And the idea was, in the original song Jessie's Girl, it's about a guy that he was working with. He sees Jessie's girlfriend. He's like, oh, I want to make her mine. And then at the end of the song, it kind of leaves it open-ended. There's that, you don't know which way it went. And then so Claudio had the idea of writing the sequel. Like, let's find out what would happen if Jessie's Girl decided to leave Jessie and go with Rick Springfield's character in that song. And so that's where we kind of touched off with this. And things aren't going so well in the Jessie's Girl household with this song. I don't know how much of the lyrics you've seen of this one, Alex, or if you've watched the video. Let me know what you're thinking here.
Oh, I dove in head first to this as soon as you sent me the screenshot of something big is coming. It was the day before it came out. I was like, okay. And as soon as it came out, I was trying to dig in, look up new articles here and there about what they were saying about it. And yeah, I definitely knew. First of all, fun bit of trivia: the song "Jessie's Girl," the inspiration for it came. Rick Springfield and his buddy's girlfriend went to a stained glass seminar, like learning how to make stained glass. Which I'm like, you're a pop star. Why don't you just do drugs like a normal pop star? And like,
well, he wanted to make his own bong.
Yeah, he's probably making a nice stained glass Coke plate or something.
He was very clearly stoned in that Instagram video they did.
Oh yeah, and but his buddy's name was Gary, and he originally wrote the song as Gary's Girl. So imagine rocking out to that at karaoke.
I wish that I had Gary's Girl. Gross.
Right?
Yeah, that sucks.
Gary's
that
Girl
sucks.
sounds like she's a big old woman.
Yeah, that's one of those ones that would have made it to the fair use guidelines or something. We'd be allowed to use that one and be like, nobody's going to pay for it. So that's public domain now.
And he got Jessie off of a girl's like softball shirt. He just randomly saw some girl wearing a shirt that said Jessie on it. He's like, yeah, that's good. So
yeah, I mean, it works way better. I mean, there's a zillion things that are better than Gary's Girl.
Yeah.
Well,
fuck.
Ugh, gross.
Jafar's Girl would have been better.
And so it's, I mean, a questionable reason to write a song and be like, hey, my buddy's girlfriend's hot, I want to bang her. It's like, I guess in the 80s, that was there are probably tons of songs that are like that, but it's just, in true Claudio in Coheed fashion. If you get yourself familiar at all with the Amory Wars, which is the overarching story about, that Coheed and Cambria works around in their albums, you'll notice that people are inherently flawed and tend to do the wrong things. And so he certainly brought that sentiment to this song. And so he starts out, so a miracle happened and I got my wish. You see, Jessie saw it fitting. I go and take what's his. Oh, he did me dirty. So apparently the idea is that Jessie's girl has something wrong with her, that she's a monster in some way. And it just is immediately like, oh, well, this was a regrettable decision. Like, grass was not greener on the other side this time, so they go on to say, but things got funny as time exposed. That didn't, nothing could stop her. The flip side of Jessie's girl that no one knows, she's out of her mind. So clearly Jessie wanted to get rid of this girl, and it's just kind of a funny twist. I never would have thought that this is something that I wanted to hear or would have even thought about, a sequel to a song. Who thinks of that? Claudio does, apparently, because that's their entire discography is all sequels anyway. But it's just a funny way to think about the story. That's like, they don't have this fairy tale ending. It's like this lady's crazy. Like, she's got a crazy flaw. He's flawed, obviously, for wanting to break them up in the first place. Jesse's the only good guy here.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like a Tales from the Crypt thing where it just plays out like careful what you wish for. Yeah, I love it. And then there's like that line at the end. I think it's Rick Springfield's verse where he's like, now we're married. We have a house and 3 kids. And shit would have been better if I had left that monster in the 80s. Like,
yep.
That's just so fucking awesome. It's so like elegant in its simplicity and funny as shit.
Yeah.
And the song rocks too. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely classic Coheed pop rock, and they certainly can get really heavy, like really complicated prog rock, and if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm not going to go into a whole diatribe about Coheed. I certainly would be willing to, maybe in a future episode, but if anybody wants to really get into that with me, they certainly can. I'll give you the deep cuts. I'll give you the good stuff. But this one's got that very, if you've heard of Favor House Atlantic or Blood Red Summer, these songs by Coheed that are these very just kind of pop rock songs, very dark subject matter in them, but very like it's that thing you always hear about where the lyrics don't match the melody. Claudio is very good at doing that, where it's great pop song, it matches that kind of 80s rock melody like the original had, but you listen to the lyrics and it's like, well, this guy's life sucks.
Yeah. Well, and then it's reinforced by the music video where like she takes this random dude's phone to the bathroom with her and takes a bunch of selfies and then just discreetly puts it back on the table, and then the guy's girlfriend picks it up and sees all the like booby selfies and stuff, and she's like, what the hell, man? So it's just like, obviously, you don't want to rely on that kind of intertextuality to understand the song. Not that you have to. It's just like, again, a very clever thing they did with the video to reinforce that she's out of her mind. Jesse's girl is not to be trusted.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it. I mean, obviously, I'm going to enjoy most things that Coheed do regardless, just because, obviously they're a favorite band of mine, so I'm going to look at everything they do with the rose-colored glasses. But I really thought this was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't have been something that I would have thought of, like a sequel to a song, but it did get me thinking, what other sequels to songs would you want to hear? So this was another thing that Alex and I talked about, that we weren't going to tell each other what songs we picked. This is going to be just kind of sight unseen. He doesn't know what I picked. I don't know what he picked. So Alex, take it away. Let me know what you think on this one.
Well, my first one is Don't Stand So Close to Me by the Police. Now, are you familiar with the lyrics and the themes of that song?
That one's about an underage girl, correct?
It's about a teacher and allegations that he is sleeping with one of his students because his students have a crush on him. I mean, there's the line, strong words in the staff room, the accusations fly. So it's basically about a girl who's hot for teacher. He really wants her too, but he's obviously not going to do anything about it. all the other young girls are seeing what they perceive to be special attention. So now they're going to try to ruin this girl's life, but the teacher's caught in the crossfire. But it ends on a cliffhanger because it doesn't. I think the last lyric is something. I'm paraphrasing, but it's like he sees her, he starts to shake and cough, just like the old man in that book by Nabokov, which is Lolita.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's where they leave it.
Of course, Sting would write that. Of course.
Yeah, right. But that is one I would love to see where it went. Like, did he do anything about it? Did he go to jail? Did he do the right thing and go to jail anyway? There's a lot of directions you can go with it. And I'll tell you, it dovetails with the song I was going to pick that I wanted a sequel to, which was Stan by Eminem. But I then found it because my original idea was, okay, they only say that Stan drove the car off the bridge with his pregnant wife in the trunk, or pregnant girlfriend in the trunk. It never explicitly says everyone died. So my idea was going to be the wife and the kid died, but Stan lived, so he went to prison where he shares a cell with the teacher from Don't Stand So Close to Me, and those two fall in prison love. And that was going to be my double sequel song. But there is already a sequel to Stan called Bad Guy, which was about Stan character's younger brother Matthew coming to kill Eminem because he perceives Eminem as having caused Stan's death. So my plan is ruined.
Well, I didn't realize there was a sequel to that song. I'm sure it's bad.
I didn't listen to it. I read the lyrics, and it was very intense, as you would imagine from Marshall Mathers.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that's actually, it's funny that, when we were talking about it before, we did kind of give some generalities about, how we went about looking up the sequels. And I said for mine that I'll get into in a minute that one I could see as a sequel to the other. And it's just funny that you also picked two songs that you kind of connected, and it's just, I feel like they deserve each other, those two in your songs there.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. I feel like they're both, especially, Stan doesn't seem great.
He's not an especially stable guy when you get down to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all know the song. Of course you do.
With Devin Sawa in the video, how could you not know?
Right. Come on.
How could you not know?
Devin Sawa.
American hero.
America's sweetheart, Devin Sawa.
Yeah. So the songs that I picked, now I'm going to say the one first. The second one is going to be the one that I think is the sequel to the first one. The first one is Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
Oh.
By Meatloaf. So I think most people that know me know that I am, as well as being a Coheed fan, a Springsteen fan, I am a big time Meatloaf fan. Me and friend of the pod Tanner, well, we don't know if he's a friend of the pod yet. We'll hold off on that. He might be enemy of the pod. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
He and I went, it was actually the other day, it was 13 years ago from the other day that we went to see Meatloaf in Boston, front row center, for the Three Bats tour. Absolutely incredible. Love Meatloaf. And so in Paradise by the Dashboard Light, if people are not familiar with it, it's basically guy and his date on prom night. They're supposed to go, obviously, to the school dance. She says, oh, actually, let's go to the lake instead. And going to the lake, I say that in air quotes, that just pretty much means we're going to go necking. We're going to go park in the dark, see what happens, see what happens there. So song progresses, everything. We were barely 17. We were barely dressed. Ain't no doubt about it. Baby got to go and shout it. Ain't no doubt about it. We were doubly blessed. So he's thinking, I'm going to get lucky. This is going great. This is perfect. And then all of a sudden, you get the stop right there. Before we go any further, I got to know right now, will you love me forever? Blah, blah, blah. The question that, maybe not love me forever, but, do you have respect for me? Is this just a one-time thing? Perfectly legitimate question to ask. So he says, well, let me sleep on it, as his way of saying, well, let's just do it and I'll figure it out tomorrow. I'll sleep on how I feel about it, very classic. It's that kind of like Porky's vibe where it's like, oh, this boy's got to get himself laid. And he's got to say what he's got to say, Then they go, so it goes into that. And then he says, I couldn't take it any longer. Lord, I was crazy. A feeling came upon me like a tidal wave. Started swearing on my God and on my mother's grave that I would love you to the end of time, just because it's like, you can't stand it. You got to get in those pants.
Oh, yeah.
Got to get in there, And it goes on to say at the end, so they've done it. Things went well for him. And then he says, they basically decide, oh, well, this actually, I didn't mean any of those things. Like this sucks. If I got to spend another minute with you, I don't think that I can really survive. Is one of the lines in the song. So it's like, well, I said those things just to get in your pants. Clearly it was a lie. I didn't really have those feelings about you. So this brings me to the sequel song, the Pina Colada song.
Okay. Show your work.
So if people aren't familiar with Escape is actually the name of the song, but I always knew it as the Pina Colada song. Yeah. It's the one that's, if you like pina coladas, getting caught in the rain, if you're not into yoga, if you have half a brain. The guy looks at a newspaper ad, because he decides, I've had enough of my lady, been together too long, like I don't like this anymore. That same sentiment at the end of Paradise by the Dashboard Light. He gets, then he says, oh, so I took out an ad in the paper. Somebody responded. So we're going to meet up with each other. And then the end of the song is that, spoiler alert, turns out the people that he was cheating, that he was going to cheat with actually was his wife. Turns out they had things in common that they had put in, the chorus of the song. If you like pina coladas, getting caught in the rain, it turns out they had those things in common and they just weren't communicating.
Oh man.
But I know, tale's old as time, but that to me was the sequel. Paradise by the Dashboard, like these two crazy kids fell in love, heat of passion, said they loved each other, did it. Things got a little stale. Took out some ads in the newspaper, talked about how much they both like pina coladas. Then they found out that they loved each other all along, and that they were just ignoring each other and undercutting each other with, I'm sure, was some passive aggressive bullshit that they didn't talk about in the song. They've just been undercutting each other for years.
Oh, sure.
I just had no idea. Yeah. But I can't imagine that relationship really worked out that well, right?
No, not at all. I mean, I for a minute was racking my brain when you were just talking about Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I was like, okay, because in my interpretation, he gets her pregnant. Every time for some reason I hear that song, I'm like, doesn't sound like there's a condom in the mix. So I feel like he must have knocked this girl up after they had sex. So I could see that precipitating kind of in the vein of Jesse's Girl 2, where they're kind of forced. It's like that show Grounded for Life.
Yeah.
Where Sean and Claudia Finnerty.
Yep.
Kind of.
Oh, it was a great show.
Oh, yeah, totally.
The brother on that show, incredible.
Oh, my God. The dad.
Yeah.
Also amazing. Crotchety old dude. The guy from Office Space.
Yep.
It's the jump to conclusions, Matt. It's got different conclusions you can jump to. Yeah, so I was like, where's Geoff going with this? There's going to be some kind of like baby angle to this. But no, I see what you're saying, where, yeah, they get locked into a loveless marriage and realize they've had more in common after all. And all they had to do was buy a wearing blender, and they could have had many happy years together. Known.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but I just feel like you get to the point where you're taking out personal ads in the paper. And that's the thing that the younger generation, I don't think, is ever going to know about. That was Tinder before Tinder. You
Yeah.
you swiped right on Sunday mornings in the newspaper, basically, is how people used to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just, I feel like they get home, they'd be like, wait a second. So we really just took out ads in the paper to cheat on each other. Like, I feel like that realization has got to get in there at some point.
Yeah.
Unless they just ignore it forever,
Well, and that's the thing is, do you look at that and does it change your perspective forever, where you go, oh, really, we were just kind of saying the same thing in different way. It was a communication breakdown. Or does that make you go, well, you were ready to cheat and so were you? You know what I'm saying? Did they stew in that acrimony, and rather than like saving their marriage, does it put the final nail in the coffin?
I'd like to think it put the final nail in the coffin. Yeah. I'd like to think there wasn't a happy ending for that song.
I don't think either of them is going to do very well on their own either. They seem pretty codependent.
And also pina coladas are pretty gross.
They really
like of all
are.
your fruity tropical drinks, like that's the last one that I really want to get into.
Drink a Mai Tai. Even before a margarita, just do a Mai Tai.
Yeah. Yeah. Just you'll be a lot better off. Or a frozen margarita.
Yeah.
You know, like any of those you'll be better off.
I would agree. You know, it's funny too, you're talking about Meatloaf. A lot of hate for Meatloaf out there. I don't get it. I truly don't get it.
I don't understand that either. I will go ahead and say, as far as his politics are concerned, recently, you can say whatever you want. I'm not about to defend the man.
Oh no, is he a Trump guy?
Oh yeah.
Oh fuck, dude.
Well, he's a Texas boy.
Yeah.
You know, he's a Southern boy, and he I don't know if he's got a ton of money now, but he had a lot of money. So you know, Trump's ideals would probably appeal to him pretty strongly, and I think he knew him like back in the day because he was on The Apprentice as well.
Oh my God, you're right. He was.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think he got fired, actually. But who knows? He was on TV. He was relevant for a while longer. But Meatloaf, to me, is, you know, you got to be in the mood for it. But as far as just epic songs, you know, with just these kind of over-the-top, bombastic storylines, like, you're not going to find it anywhere else.
No. I mean, it's the writing of Jim Steinman coupled with the raw vocal powerhouse abilities of Meatloaf.
Yep.
Meatloaf Ade, or Marvin Lee Ade, wasn't that his name?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
What a 1-2 punch those guys were, and then they just fucking hated each other, and they finally came back together, and it was dog shit. What was it called?
Yeah.
Braver Than We Are?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Oh, it sucked, dude.
It was really bad. Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of Meatloaf deep cuts that I really like. You know, I was doing earlier this year. I was doing people were doing those like 30 days of songs challenge on Instagram, the stories, and I found one. I was like, wait a second, I could do 30 days of Meatloaf songs to this, and it was working perfectly. And it went until the George Floyd murder, like the day I was on like day 27, I think, or something like that. And then the George Floyd murder happened, and you know, social media kind of took that by storm. So I really didn't feel like posting Meatloaf songs.
There was a moratorium on glib posting. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, you know, I kind of just took a break on that, but I was having a blast finding all these deep cuts that fit. And I couldn't have given less of a shit if anybody really was enjoying it. I would get DMs from people saying that they really were having fun with it.
Oh,
but
I was enjoying the shit out of it. When I realized what you were doing after like 5 days, it's like, all right, strap in. It's the month of meat.
Yeah, and I didn't like post that I was going to do that or anything. I was just like, I wonder if people are going to notice. So I think it was like day 6 when people started asking. They were like, "Is this just all going to be Meatloaf?" And I was just like, "I'll Meatloaf all the time, baby." Like, enjoy the ride.
All I'll say is you've got 15 days to find out.
Yeah, I really I love Meatloaf, and if again, just like with Coheed, if anybody wants to talk about what they should go down a rabbit hole and listen to, I think with Meatloaf you can just as well as I can give them the rundown on what they need to listen to. I will say the first 2 Bad Out of Hell albums.
Yep.
Third one, good luck finding it anywhere.
Yeah, what the fuck?
I don't know what the deal is. I think he signed some really bad contracts in his life, to be honest with you, and a lot of those songs were previously written. So like they were able to do them, but I don't think he really profited off the album at all. Like, I think it's like you're allowed to put a cover song on it basically, or you're allowed to use it, but he couldn't profit off of himself. It was like all the producers that owned these songs at the record companies that he just sang for them, basically like an old style, like Motown hired gun.
Yeah.
They just happened to have originally, I think, been written for him to sing. They just had been sitting on them for forever.
That's the pitfall of not writing your own shit, man.
Yeah,
You're beholden to whoever.
The stuff that he's written on his own is not good. I mean, he's always going to be a great singer, but yeah, the stuff that he's done on his own outside of the Steinman collaboration, generally not great.
It's suspect. I feel like that actually could be not even just for him, but for a bunch of acts, particularly ones we love, to do like
Yep.
a tongue-in-cheek future episodes where we're like the worst of Meatloaf, the worst of fucking Bob Dylan, whatever. Could be really interesting.
God, worst of Bob Dylan episode would be a doozy. Because he's just so prolific.
Yeah,
like Meatloaf would be easy because he's got 7 albums or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be easy to pick out the worst ones because everything except for Bad Out of Hell 1 and 2 and a few choice songs off the other albums. But like Bob Dylan, what, he got like 20 studio albums or something like that.
Something like
and
that.
There's a lot that are just clunkers. I mean, his newest song that he came out with, everybody was sucking his dick about it. I'm like, I just don't think this song's that good.
That 16.5-minute one about the assassination of Lincoln or
yeah,
JFK,
Murder Most
or
Foul or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody, when Twitter blew up with all the blue check marks talking about, oh, Dylan did it again. Nobody can cut a political line like Bob Dylan can. It's like he's talking about a murder from 1963.
Yeah.
Like I understand that there's obviously time is a flat circle. History repeats itself. However you want to say it. So like there's obviously relevance still to the whole situation.
Sure.
But you can't. I don't know. You can't just praise somebody for making something just because of the person that made it.
Well, exactly. You can't praise every little turd a baby makes just because you love them and they're your kid.
Yeah.
Although you are supposed to go, you did it in the potty. Good for you. Positive reinforcement. So bad example, but
nobody poops but you, and that's concentrated evil coming out of your behind.
But Bob Dylan, your future turds, please just keep them to yourself because that song is rough.
Yes. And it was hard because I was like, well, maybe it'll get good because there's other Bob Dylan songs that like start out real slow and you realize what he's trying to do and they really grow on you and get better. That didn't happen with this one.
No,
didn't happen. I asked my dad about it and he was not pleased. He's like, yeah, it sucks.
You can take that to the bank.
Yeah.
That's a greeny
Papa
pick.
G. Yeah, if Papa G says that a song's not very good, then he's generally right. Because I mean, the man has listened to System of a Down and given it compliments. So,
oh boy,
yeah. Oh, he loves Aerials. I remember when I got that Toxicity album, and he heard Aerials. He's like, "Oh, what's this? This guy sings very well." I'm like, well, Dad, this is System of a Down. Do you want to hear some other songs? He was like, sure. He didn't like the other songs.
Oh my god.
I should have stuck with the more like Soldier Side type of songs with System of a Down. I went right to like Prison Song, ADD.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No, you work up to that.
Yeah, I failed. I failed on that one.
I'm trying to ease my dad into listening to that Baroness and Mutoid Man cover of Purple Rain.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just so technically excellent. You can't deny that musicianship, but he'll find a way.
Yeah. Oh, well, because it's not... Well, also because he didn't create it, so he'll probably say it's...
These guys don't sound like they're rocking for Christ. Doesn't sound very Christ-like to me.
They haven't talked about them on One American News Network yet, so...
They're not displaying very beatific attitudes here.
Yeah. I don't know why I gave your dad a Wilford Brimley accent. Maybe because someone needs to have one.
Yeah, he could age into one. He's kind of Jersey trash, though.
So. Oh, yeah, I love when he puts that accent on.
Yeah,
that's always fun.
Great stuff.
Not the very Sopranos. Not for nothing tone, but
Let me tell you something, T. You're always gonna do that annoying fucking tick.
Well, I think we are, as far as timing goes on this one, I think we are well past what our initial thought was. I think for anybody that's still with us here, our initial thought is, we kind of want to keep these a little tight, around 40 minutes or so. But, with this one being the inaugural episode, we're just feeling it out. Maybe we listen back and really like how this one turned out and stick with this format. So if you listen to this, you let us know. If this is something that you really enjoyed, if you think one segment worked, one didn't, just kind of let us know what you're feeling. If you got some music suggestions for us of things that you'd like to hear on future episodes, please let us know about that. For now, we can plug our personal socials until we get the pod socials up and running. So Alex, why don't you go ahead and give yours?
I am Birds R, as in the letter R, Dinosaurs on Instagram and Twitter. And you can also follow me, the Skimbo Lounge. It's at SKIMBO Lounge on Instagram and Twitter. Also listen to the Skimbo Lounge. We could really use the listeners. So, find us on all major platforms.
Yes, and I think and something I brought up to Alex, and certainly up to him whether he wants to keep doing that, is I want to make sure kind of have the Skimbo Lounge and this podcast out on that line be kind of in the same family. So we may decide to have Rory from the Skimbo Lounge on with us sometimes here, because he's been very influential in a lot of the music that both of us have listened to, obviously being a really close friend of ours for a number of years, as well as some other folks. We'd like to eventually maybe get into some industry folks on the pod here. That might be way down the line, until we kind of get this ball rolling a little bit, but we're hoping, that what we have to say is something that people want to hear. So we really appreciate some feedback on the episode from folks if you do hear it. My socials are going to be at Dude Mansky. That's DOOD _Mansky. That's going to be both Instagram and Twitter. So just get at us on either of those. We do have an email for the pod that I do have. It's out on that line at gmail.com. So if you prefer email, any submissions you want to give that way, please do. If you're interested in being on the show, if you have a burning passion to talk about a certain artist or album, tell us why your favorite artist is the best one or something like that. We're open. We're going to be pretty fluid with this. We're going to structure it with having things to talk about every episode. But as far as what we spend time on or what we choose to do every episode, we're going to have that open-ended and really leave it kind of up to us and what we think is going to be right for the pod.
Yeah, I would agree. It's all very fluid. Two things I would say quickly before we go. If you do listen to the podcast linearly, you don't skip around, you just start it and let it go. You will not offend us. I'm asking because we want the feedback. Tell us where you stopped. If you listen to the whole thing, let us know. If you got 20 minutes in, if you got 40 minutes in, we kind of want to see where people's attention peters off. Just so, again, we can figure out when we kind of want to keep this to. And also, I think it would probably be helpful for us to announce the next week's picks maybe sometimes, or to experiment with that. Like next week, we'll talk about the White Album.
Yeah.
It could work. Maybe there's an element of surprise that's more appealing to people. We don't know what they're going to talk about next week. We could announce one. We could announce none. I would like to call my shot for next week right now, if I may.
Okay. Yeah.
I am throwing down the gauntlet for Caroline Rose, Superstar.
Okay.
That's my pick for next week. So if you guys want to listen to that to prepare, you got one of them.
Okay, perfect. I will. I'm going to give a little bit of thought on mine. I got a few ideas swimming in my head, but actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stick with the country vibe to continue this week. I'm going to go ahead and say the Tyler Childers Country Squire album. So his latest. If you're not familiar with Tyler Childers, sorry, I don't know if I messed up his name. Tyler Childers Country Squire album. If you're not familiar with him, you can go ahead and listen to those albums so that when you listen to the pod along with us, you can kind of think about what your thoughts on the album were while we're giving ours, and give you a little context on what we're talking about. I think for something like Kacey Musgraves Golden Hour, I'm sure a lot of the folks that are going to listen to this first one have already heard that. But if you're interested, we do want to kind of open our own ears and open yours as well to some new things. If something you haven't listened to before. So Caroline Rose, Superstar is the album that you're choosing, Alex. Okay. And then I'm choosing Tyler Childers, Country Squire. So we'll talk about those next on the next episode. Again, go ahead and follow Alex at Birds Are Dinosaurs on Instagram and Twitter. Myself at Dude Mansky on both Instagram and Twitter. Email is out on that line. Thank you so much if you listened so far. I'm looking forward to the rest. This has been Out on That Line.